So our guest today, I'm sure some of you already know him. So it's Tanner Gibb. So Tanner reviews and updates our corporate materials for scientific accuracy. He creates scientific content to complement product marketing and contributes in across functional groups to the development of new and maintenance of existing products like TR90, Age Lock Youth, Beauty Focus Collagen, Age Lock Meta, and Age Lock TRMe. So he is most appreciated providing training on complex topics in an understandable way to audiences around the world. So he's got a bachelor's degree from Brigham Young University. Where he studied many different health sciences, including nutrition and biology, and he's been with New Skin for more than 15 years now. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tanner and hand you over the floor. Welcome, Tanner.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I know it's earlier for you. It's later for me. It's 7:04 p.m. here in Utah. So look, happy to be with you today. Hope everyone's cheering, celebrating life, having a good time, and excited to learn about science. So let me share my screen and we're going to jump right in. Today, we're going to focus on science. And the reason it's just going to be science, I'm not going to mention any product, is that it allows me to talk a little bit more in depth about ingredients and microbiome and some of the science to really help you and all of us here understand what this is, what we're talking about, why this is relevant for all of us and for our health and wellness and anti-aging, and dive in a little bit deeper into the science behind the ingredients and what they do. So first of all, let's back up and talk about the gut microbiome. I love that picture there, right? If you have a magnifying glass, you can see into the intestines. We know we have, all right, this very, very long tube that goes from the esophagus to the stomach, to your small and your large intestine, to your colon. And pretty much what happens is inside there, you have a layer that we call your microbiome. And your microbiome has over 38 trillion bacteria. It also is composed of different viruses, of different fungi. I mean, pretty much all of these foreign invaders that are living inside of us, all right? More foreign bacteria than actual human cells in the body, depending on the study and the estimate that you look at. These are just estimates because you're talking about trillions of things inside of us. And they actually don't begin very much at birth, right? That's kind of the initiation of a microbiome, and you build that up over time. And we know the microbiome is very incredible. It's very diverse in the population. In fact, I like to call it a microbiome fingerprint because your microbiome is very different from mine, which is why you might respond differently to different ingredients compared to me or your friend or your neighbor, because we all have different health, different ages, different backgrounds, different things going on in our bodies. And because of that, it varies quite a bit. But what we know from the science is that, look, gut health is an amazing topic. If I were to put it in PubMed and you see like microbiome science, you're going to see very little research that was done in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, but really catapulted in the 2000s. So in the last 20 years, we have learned a lot about the microbiome. It used to be thought that all of these bugs that live inside of us, all of these bacteria, had something to do with digestion and gut health, and that was about it. But today, the science is absolutely fascinating. We know that your microbiome impacts almost every single part of your body. It is called your second brain for a reason. I mean, you make a lot of serotonin. These microbes make different compounds like short chain fatty acids that can impact your brain. They can impact your heart, your lungs, your skin, your digestion, right? And so taking care of your microbiome is critical to good health and to good wellness. In fact, most of your immune system actually lies within your gut as well. And so taking care of the gut is the key. It's almost like the first thing you should be focused on if you're trying to improve your health and wellness. So I love this picture here, right? We got the friendly bacteria that are smiling, and then the frowny faced bacteria that look a little bit scared. Well, we have this representing good and bad bacteria, and they really form a balance in the body. I actually don't love the terms good and bad because it's more dynamic. It's a lot more complex than that when you get into some of the details. What an optimal microbiome is still yet to be determined from the science, but we know diversity is a good thing, and we know there are certain classes of bacteria that seem to be really good in the body at addressing things like inflammation, as supporting a healthy immune response, as supporting good digestion and bowel movements, and impacting other areas in the body as well. So pretty much what happens is we have this balance and things are pretty good, but look, there are things that can happen. I think a lot of us can relate to this, right? This balance can be disturbed and it can actually change very rapidly. By the way, your microbiome can change within a day, within an hour, within a minute, actually, of what you're eating. Your diet plays a huge role in your microbiome. But yeah, so things that can disrupt your microbiome is going to be poor diet. By poor diet, I'm referring to things like excess calories, really high in sugar, high in processed foods, high in fatty foods. There are healthy fats that we want to have, right? I mean, think about avocado, nuts, seeds, oils, etc. I'm talking about excess and the fried and the processed foods that we tend to overeat that are very easy to eat. These things are disrupting your microbiome. And in fact, what happens is when you feed a whole bunch of sugar, for example, to your microbiome, some of the bad bacteria soak up some of that energy. And so you're almost feeding some of the bad bacteria in the gut, at least in excess, right? And out of control diets. Traveling, right? Who out there likes to travel? I certainly do. Traveling is fun. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing. But at the same time, when you travel, you get outside of your rhythm, right? Your body has a circadian rhythm that it likes to adapt to, where you like to eat foods at certain times of the day, and even disrupting just the timing of the day when you eat can impact your microbiome and digestion and your overall health. You also might eat some different foods when you travel, right? Maybe you're accustomed to certain plates, and then you come out to Utah, for example, and you eat a whole bunch of different crazy foods, and your tummy is just not doing too good. Antibiotics, right? These are things that are great. They're a miracle in modern medicine, but at the same time, well, the definition of antibiotic is that it's anti your microbiome, right? It's literally destroying the microbes that live inside of the gut and hopefully destroying some of the bad ones, but at the same time, it's probably destroying some of the good ones as well. And so it's just something to be aware of. And then stress. Um, a lot of people don't really connect the dots here, but stress is actually a big player in changing your microbiome, in changing that balance, and it can impact digestion, how you feel after foods, how you feel with a lot of different health related things. And so these are general things. There's more to this list that can really tip the scales not in your favor. But there are good things that we can actually do, right? And they're going to be the opposite of this, right? It's going to be healthier diets, right? With foods that are rich in fiber, a lot of fruits and vegetables, a lot of whole grains, right? We want to feed our gut microbiome good, healthy foods. We want to manage our stress, right? Whether that be through meditation, through deep breathing, through sports, through exercise. We want to get good care of our health to be able to tip the scales a little bit more in our favor to support a healthy microbiome. There's also key ingredients that you can take from literature that support building up some of these healthy microbes that we have inside of the gut that I'll get to in just a little bit. So I think a lot of us can relate to this. As it says here, it's common, especially in women. I actually tend to believe from this study where they looked at over 1,000 people, they were getting just the rate at which you have different side effects and symptoms. You can read it across the list here. Bloating seems to be a very, very big one. Gas, diarrhea, cramps, pain, constipation, changes in stool frequency and consistency, alternating, and then no bowel symptoms as well. That being said, right, 68% of us admit to having symptoms. I think in this case, to my personal opinion is that females are sometimes a little bit more honest or too honest about their symptoms, about their health. Some of us males, we might like to hide some of the symptoms or some of the things that are going on because this seems to be a growing trend, a growing concern. And these are people that admit to these symptoms in these studies. It's actually been shown in other literature that people tend to overestimate the good and underestimate the bad. So if I were to ask you today, like, how many fruits and vegetables do you eat? Let's say in reality you eat 2 to 3 servings. You might tell me, oh yeah, I eat 4 to 5, or I exercise 5 days a week. In reality, it's probably 3 days a week, or whatever it might be. And then on the flip side, for some of the bad things or the side effects that maybe don't make us look so cool or look so good in life, we tend to underestimate some of these things. So in actuality, these numbers could be much higher. They really could be. And the key point to all of these things, right? The bloating, the gas, the diarrhea, all of these side effects or symptoms can be indicators of a disrupted microbiome, right? From poor diet, stress, traveling, health issues, things that are going on. Your microbiome can impact all of these symptoms related to digestion. And so rather than just kind of a one-size-fits-all approach to addressing these specific side effects, if you can address your microbiome indirectly, it can impact bloating, right? It can impact diarrhea. It can impact all of these things that you see here on this list. So, well, what do people go to in the store, right? They have gut issues, they have tummy issues, they have bloating. They're like, oh, what am I going to do? Well, a lot of people, their first source or their first thing they think about is, oh, do you know what? I just need to jack up on a whole bunch of probiotics. And you get probiotics from all these food sources, right? Kimchi, sauerkraut, cottage cheese, yogurt, kombucha, pickles, whatever your favorite is, right? But be aware that sometimes probiotics can be really good and healthy and safe. However, they may not be providing the benefit that you think you should be getting from probiotics because of the factors listed below, okay? Now, when it comes to probiotics, say, for example, in yogurt, you want to look at how acidic the product is. If it's too acidic, it might actually eat away at the viability of the probiotic and not do you any good and not be effective. You want to consider the presence of other bacteria. I mean, bacteria, they're not friendly. They're battling for survival. They're battling to colonize inside of your body once they get inside. And we've actually seen firsthand, and there's literature that supports this, that look, the presence of other bacteria in a similar product, they might compete for survival and decrease the amount of viable probiotics that are found therein. The level of oxygen in your product, we know that oxygen can actually destroy and damage probiotics, so you want to be aware of that. Food processing and storage, right? Your product might have a very high amount of probiotics at the beginning of shelf life, right? We call them CFUs, or colony forming units. But look, if it's not processed well, or if it's not stored properly, look, the amount that you have at the beginning of shelf life might be very different at the end of shelf life. And in fact, it might even be non-existent at the end of its storage period if they only give you a value at the very beginning. That's because of all these factors here today. And then the last point here, which actually in my view is the most critical one, is the ability to colonize in the gut. So the ability of a probiotic to be effective for you and for gut health and microbiome is its ability to actually survive the acidic environment of the stomach. We know the stomach, it has a very low pH. It secretes different acids. It secretes different enzymes, right, to begin that process of digestion of food. And part of that protection is that it's designed to actually keep bacteria out of the body. So with some probiotics, you may think you're getting a benefit, but if it's getting swallowed up in the acid environment of the stomach, how much value is it really providing you? Probably none at all. So the viability of a probiotic is very, very critical. And one of the reasons why, look, maybe you've gone to the store and you've had gut issues and you've tried, pickles or a bunch of yogurt or a bunch of these different things, and it's not solving the issue. Well, the answer could be there are different ways, there are different ingredients and different technologies that you can apply in your own life to improve your microbiome in perhaps a more efficient way. So let's talk about that. I mentioned that briefly, right? Probiotics seem to be a good solution. That's what a lot of people go for, but there can be better and different ways to approach this. Now we have prebiotics, and I'm going to talk about that more in depth today. Prebiotics is just a fancy term for ingredients that feed your microbiome, okay? Probiotics, which I'm not going to talk about anymore today because those really only apply in different food products or as a standalone product with its own separate stability and storage conditions, right? They don't work very well in combination ingredient products. So we're going to skip over that, but probiotics are live bacteria. Their benefit is if they actually colonize and get inside of the gut. Postbiotics might be a new term for you. Postbiotics are they begin as probiotics or live bacteria, but they go through a treatment process where they're usually heat killed. So the bacteria is no longer live. It's no longer a colony forming unit or a live bacteria. However, the benefit in this case is that as a postbiotic, it's very, very stable and it can provide benefits from its cell wall. It can provide benefits from ingredients that it secretes or metabolites that it produces. And so in some ways, postbiotics can actually be even better than probiotics because you don't have to worry about the stability concern. It's not a live bacteria anymore. It's still providing its benefits as long as it's backed by good science. So these are good tips and tricks of things to do. Plus exercise and healthy diet, eating the right foods are going to feed your microbiome and address some of these issues that we've talked about. So I briefly mentioned these definitions, right? We have prebiotics, which are nutrients that help the microbiome thrive. For those of you who like to plant, I mean, anyone do any gardening out there? You like to plant your roses, your flowers, your fruits and vegetables, whatever it might be. Well, sometimes you need to give those plants fertilizer, and fertilizer is going to help those plants grow. Just like that, prebiotics are like fertilizers for your microbiome. So these are specialized nutrients that feed the gut microbes that exist within you, okay? They're different from probiotics, which are live beneficial bacteria, at least that if they can colonize and get inside the body. But like I mentioned before, probiotics really only work in standalone specific products with different storage conditions. They don't work in combination ingredient products. And then postbiotics. Postbiotics is a new term, but they begin as probiotics, they're treated, and they can still be just as effective, if not even more effective than the probiotic based on the study and based on the type that you're looking at, because they're producing different things, they're producing different metabolites, they have different compounds, even after they've been treated, and you don't have to worry about stability. So they're actually fantastic. There's a ton of new and up and coming science about the benefits of postbiotics. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more and more innovation in the area of postbiotics that we apply in the future. So I mean, just talking about diets here, I know I have a statistic that 95% of Americans do not consume recommended amounts of fiber. I don't have the stat here for the Pacific region. However, I know that the American diet has spread almost like a plague to the rest of the world, right? We've Americanized different foods and different plates and different lifestyles. But the bottom line is, regardless of where you live, you are probably very deficient in the amount of fiber that you should be getting because you're just not eating those kinds of foods, right? A lot of different fruits and vegetables and legumes and whole grains. Even whole grains are often demonized in the industry, but they can be a significant source of fiber and prebiotics that can help to support the microbiome. But overall, I mean, the data doesn't lie. You know, the average intake, at least for this study, is about 16 grams a day. For women, you should be getting 25 grams a day minimum. And then for men, it's going to be well over 35 grams. You can see we're very, very, very deficient in these nutrients that are feeding the microbiome. So from a dietary standpoint, we either need to change our diet dramatically, which is easier said than done. I mean, millions of dollars have been spent in trying to get people to eat healthier, right? To get their fruits and vegetables, to get their vitamins and minerals. But the data doesn't lie. We're deficient in vitamins and minerals. We're deficient in fruits and vegetables, and we're deficient in the nutrients that are actually feeding our microbiome. And so you can argue all day that, hey, in a perfect world, you should get everything from diet. Well, great. We don't live in that perfect world. In fact, there's an argument that can be said that the nutrient value in a lot of fruits and vegetables is different today than it was 40 years ago. There's actually some science that shows that. And a lot of that actually has to do with how different plants are hybridized to grow in better conditions and to grow a little bit quicker and to be better protected against some things that can destroy crops. But at the same time, they might have lower levels of nutritional value. So supplementation can be a very big thing to help fill some of the gaps that we have. So We're going to talk about some key ingredient science, right? So if you're looking into the world of science in microbiome and gut health, these are key ingredients that you might consider to add to your diet that can be very beneficial. And I'm going to walk you through FOS, or fructooligosaccharides, as a prebiotic, BPL1, Bifidobacterium lactis, BPL1, say that 10 times fast, right? That's a postbiotic. Caffeine for healthy energy. Not so much energy in terms of like boosting ATP or cellular energy. It's more of like a mental energy, where caffeine is studied for things like just kind of focus and attention, and just kind of that mental energy that people feel, rather than supporting actual mitochondrial function inside of the body. That being said, it's a nice kind of pick me up, something that's great to take during the day, probably not super late at nighttime, just because caffeine can disrupt quality sleep. And then pomegranate. Pomegranate is actually a really, really, really powerful antioxidant. We're going to talk about some of the science and dive in just a little bit deeper into these ingredients here. So buckle up, get ready. We're going to first talk about FOS, or fructooligosaccharides. I love fructooligosaccharides because it's an effective prebiotic fiber even at a low dose. What does that mean? Well, look, if you start out and make drastic changes to your diet, or start adding, 5 or 10 grams of a prebiotic or a fiber to your diet, how are you going to feel? Are you going to have some GI effects, maybe a little bit of bloating, abdominal pain, right? These are things that we want to avoid. The benefit of FOS is that it's effective even at a low dose. So it's safe. You don't get the general side effects from higher doses of other types. And it's still very selective in promoting beneficial bacteria, supported by clinical studies, and well tolerated and safe with really, really good stability. So I love this. I actually do want to point out here that it's very selective in promoting beneficial bacteria in the gut, in particular Bifidobacterium. When it comes to prebiotics, they're not all created the same, because some are just kind of being fed on or metabolized by all the different microbes that we have in the gut. But we don't want to feed them all. We want to feed the good stuff. And FOS is very selective for the good stuff that's helping with digestion, that's helping with inflammation, that's helping with immunity, that's helping with a lot of stuff that I'll get into and talk about today. So selective is a unique quality that really differentiates FOS from a lot of the standard prebiotics that exist. So let's talk about some of the research studies. The one right here on the left, at least on my left, we have a design of 30 subjects, 8-week clinical trial. They took either 1, 2, or 4 grams of FOS delivered in a drink once daily, and they evaluated the effect on gut microflora and triglycerides. And for all of the doses, so including 1 gram, which is an effective dose, there was a significant increase in bifidobacterium. This actually goes back to being very selective at boosting the bifidobacterium, a good class of microbes that live within us, and a decrease in triglycerides, kind of showing some kind of metabolic change, even though it's only working in the gut. We know that the gut can impact your body's metabolism. So really, really nice results there. On the other study, it was 27 healthy subjects. It was a 2-week trial, so very, very short period of time. Subjects took 1, 3, or 5 grams of FOS, and they evaluated the effect on the gut microbiome and bowel movements. So the results you can see here, there was a 2.5-fold increase in bifidobacterium. Once again, very selective in the types of microbes that it's actually feeding and fueling inside of the body with the 1 gram FOS dose. So once again, even 1 gram, a very low dose, very, very efficient, very effective. And you have lower rates of Clostridium perfringens post-supplementation. So what this is showing you is that it's increasing some of the good and decreasing some of the bad. There was also more frequent bowel movements and a softer stool in the group that took the FOS. So let's talk about that for a second. I know it's not a very sexy thing to talk about, especially on social media, like, okay, how many times do you go to the bathroom a day, kind of a thing, right? But let's be honest, when it comes to bowel movements and the softness of the stool, those are really good indicators of your microbiome and digestive health, and how these things are actually impacting other aspects of your body. So even though it's not a sexy thing to talk about, it is very important. And even with a low dose here, we can see more regularity, which is going to be benefiting a lot of people that are struggling, with bloating and some abdominal pain and some different issues that are going on in their tummy area. If you can address some of these things, you can have a customer for life, or you can have a fan for life, so to speak, because addressing this is easier said than done in a nice, safe, effective way. So this is why I'm a huge fan of FOS. Okay. What about postbiotics? Let's switch gears and talk about BPL1. So postbiotics, these begin as probiotics, but they are treated to make them no longer live bacteria. So they are stable. You don't have to worry about stability issues. They can be just as good, if not more effective, but they're all different, right? Just like all probiotics are different, all postbiotics are different as well. And so we're going to talk about a specific postbiotic called BPL1. Okay, it is naturally occurring in both different ways. It was originally isolated from healthy humans. I actually love that. It gives it more of a natural story to it, that you're not just creating or fine-tuning things in a lab. Although it should be said, or should be noted, that it is fermented to be able to create and to scale up in the industry. It's backed by good scientific background, but it works in both ways, and the heat treated is actually more effective than the live probiotic, right? It could be due to stability or some other issues or some other things that are happening here, but the science doesn't lie. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the science behind BPL1 and the selection of this postbiotic. So this is actually a screening study where some researchers looked at BPL1, how it was able to reduce lipids in C. elegans. Lipids are fats, so there was a reduction of fats, and had the greatest reduction compared to 23 other lactobacilli strains and 15 other bifidobacterium strains. Now, I couldn't fit all of those strains on the single slide, so you're just seeing the bifidobacterium strains here, but you can see that the BPL1 was the most effective, right, at reducing lipids in C. elegans, and it was just as good as the live BPL1, showing that, look, you can heat treat this and provide incredible benefits. In this case, metabolic benefits, which actually complements the FOS and the overall results of supporting the microbiome from this BPL1 ingredient. There were many other published studies that have been done. There was one really nice human clinical study that I'm actually not going to get to today, but in this preclinical study, what's being shown is that the active compound, or the postbiotic in BPL1, has a unique active compound, right, called LTA. And showing and confirming that LTA is the active compound in BPL1 helps to confirm in the science that even when you heat treat a probiotic, in this case, the BPL1, it still maintains the activity of the active compounds and has comparable effects when you isolate the individual compound to the postbiotic. So it's a really good testament in the science that, you know what, you can actually treat this and you can have incredible active compounds that are still viable, that are still efficient, that are still effective at doing the things that they're supposed to do in the body, aka helping with your body's metabolism. In either way, in either method that you look at. So really fun science here. Caffeine, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about caffeine. Look, we get it from a lot of different sources. It's a very commonly consumed ingredient in a lot of energy drinks. In fact, if you love chugging a lot of those energy drinks from, Monsters and Red Bulls and whatever it might be nowadays, this might be maybe a healthier alternative to actually looking to get some caffeine in isolation or in some different combination of ingredients without all the extra, sugar or all the extra stuff that come in some of these other drinks that exist in the marketplace. Caffeine works in the central nervous system. It's well known to support alertness, focus, and performance. Those are kind of the healthy energy ways in which caffeine is actually supporting you. There was a really nice clinical study that was done. They looked at physical and cognitive performance that was assessed during and after exercise with or without caffeine. And they had 24 well-trained cyclists that did a 2.5-hour cycling test at 60% VO2 max. 60% VO2 max is kind of like a medium intensity of training. It's really good, but it's not like your high end. Followed by 75% VO2 max. This is kind of like your high end, pushing it till the very end of the study. So, and this is a 2.5-hour test. I mean, who wants to volunteer to ride a bike for 2.5 hours? These are well-trained individuals. What's interesting about the study is that caffeine, the group that took caffeine, they were able to increase their time to exhaustion. So it shows some kind of performance enhancing benefit there, possibly due to the reduction of at least the perception of fatigue in that group. And then secondly, caffeine increased complex cognitive ability during and after exercise. So while they were cycling, they actually had them do some brain tests where they would look at things like, hey, can you remember? Can you focus? Can you concentrate? Scientists always like to explore in different ways in different studies, but I love the ability that caffeine helped to improve cognition during exercise and after as well. So even though you're more fatigued because you're working out a little bit longer, your cognitive health wasn't detrimental. It wasn't impacted in a negative way. And one of the nice benefits of caffeine there, if for people that like to exercise, that like to work out, it's a really nice pick-me-up. Pomegranate. This is the last ingredient we're going to talk about today. I'm a huge fan of pomegranate. It's a very powerful antioxidant. Well, antioxidants, I should say. Antioxidants are kind of nature's solutions to free radicals. For those who don't know, free radicals are these unpaired electrons that are highly unstable, right? Electrons, they like to work in the buddy system. They like to have a friend. And when they lose that friend, they become unstable, where they can damage your DNA, your cells, your lipids, your proteins, and they accelerate aging in doing so. Now, free radicals on their own, they're not bad, but in excess, they can create oxidative stress. And with our diet, our lifestyle, with pollution, with poor health, all of these things are adding up additional stressors, additional oxidative stress inside of the body. And so we really do need to stack up on a wide variety of antioxidants. Pomegranate is one of them. Very powerful, very, very good. I love this image right here on the screen, right? Certain pomegranate extract by definition means that you're concentrating certain active compounds. This is a water extraction, so it's a very natural process that it undergoes. You can concentrate high amounts of these punicalagins that are very potent antioxidants. Now, here's the thing to understand about pomegranate. Some of the benefits are due to absorbing the antioxidants directly into the bloodstream and getting into the tissues and the cells where they protect our cells and protect our body against damage. However, there are other benefits from pomegranate that actually come from not being digested and absorbed inside of the body, at least directly. Some of the polyphenols in pomegranate are actually transformed, in other words, metabolized by the microbiome. So by the microbes, by the bacteria that live inside of the gut, some of them are actually feeding on some of the polyphenols that are found in pomegranate. And so in doing so, there's some preliminary research that shows that pomegranate can actually help to complement the microbiome in feeding some of the good bacteria. So it's very complementary to the FOS and the other ingredients that I talked about today. So I'm a huge fan of pomegranate. It's a superfruit, very beneficial. Most people don't get any of it in their diet. If you do, that's great, good for you. But most of us, we're really lacking. In fact, don't really get any pomegranate on a regular basis. So key ingredients, just to kind of sum up what I talked about today. Look, if you're looking to improve your gut and your microbiome, you might have some GI side effects, you might have some issues. You might actually have some issues going on that you don't even feel or even notice, but your microbiome is shifting in a bad way and you want to change that and adjust that. Look, these are the ingredients for you. These are powerful ingredients. They're backed by good clinical science, good third-party literature. We talked about the FOS as a powerful prebiotic, even at a low dose. We talked about the BPL1 from its preliminary studies showing impacts on metabolism. We talked about caffeine as a healthy energy source, mostly focused on focus and attention and brain health. And then pomegranate for a powerful antioxidant and indirectly helping to support the microbiome as well. These are all ingredients that I would suggest that you look into, that you look at, that are highly beneficial. And I believe that is my last slide. So yeah, let me stop sharing and turn it back over to you and see if there's any questions.
Questions about, would you say stevia, I guess, is part of sugar or would be a healthier source of sugar?
Yeah, stevia, well, it's a non-calorie sweetener. We understand when we formulate products that, look, you know what, there are some people that are going to be sensitive to it. When you look at the literature overall, it's really well tolerated though. And usually those sensitivities are in really high doses. So we consider that. We're not trying to pile a whole bunch of stevia into products that we sell. We want to use the minimal dose that makes it taste good, but that still is safe for our consumers.
Mhm.
If you were to translate this, I mean, because we also listen to our consumers like all over the world when we formulate products. And it's a challenge because people always want different things. Some people are like, hey, we want more pills. Some people are like, we want less pills. Some people are like, we want
Mhm.
gummies. No, we don't want gummies. We want powdered mix-ins. No, we don't. Right. So it really is a balancing act. And we really do our best because we have these
Mhm.
large scale global consumer surveys that go out
Mhm.
and we collect that feedback. And some of the feedback, most of the feedback that we receive in product development is that
Mhm.
people are more interested in alternative delivery formats,
Mhm.
meaning that we have a lot of pills, we have a lot of capsules. So they like the fun experience of being able to mix something into water or taking a
Mhm.
gummy or taking a soft chew. Moving forward, it will be a balancing act. We'll continue to move forward with both or all different types of products. But it is a testament that really the customer comes first, and we're doing our best to listen to our customers.
Thanks, Tanner. So the ingredients that we talked about today, is it a type of postbiotic? And how does it differentiate itself with the existing, um, I guess, compared to what's out there in the market at the moment? It's a bit tricky, this question.
Yeah, well, the answer is it depends on what other postbiotic you're referring to, right? Not all postbiotics are created the same, just like not all probiotics are created the same. So, I mean, if it
Mhm.
were me as a consumer and I was interested in a different postbiotic, I would ask to see the science, right? I would want to see the references. Are there studies at that dose? Is it
Mhm.
effective? What is it
Mhm.
doing, right? That for the BPL
Mhm.
one that I talked about today, it's kind of more focused on just some of the metabolic changes that it can have.
Yes.
And it's proven in literature, and I'm a big fan of it. And I
Mhm.
think it complements the FOS and the other ingredients I talked about today. So yeah,
Yes.
I think it really, really depends on the individual, which is why, and I think consumers today
Mhm.
are very intelligent, right? We want to do our homework. We're very skeptical of every little thing that goes into a product, and I think for good reason. And I think that's one of the reasons why Nu Skin has actually done so well is that we pay attention to the details in every single little thing that goes into the formula to make sure that it's backed by our success process and that the products are good and they're safe and effective. And that's what I love about what we do.
Mhm. Thank you, Tanner, and thank you, Team Pacific, for attending our training. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day. Thank you, Tanner.
See everybody.
Bye.